You were tuned into Vermont Film Essentials with your hosts, David Metzger, Lincoln L. Hayes.
That's me and that's him.
And
this is Devon Ewalt.
Hello.
He's back.
How's it going? Back for a second time. They didn't want to kick me out, you know?
We asked Devon
nice
to come
to be
back
welcomed
on
back.
for Night of the Hunter. This
That's
is
right.
one of his favorite films. We've talked about it at length at our place of employment. He loves it so much so that he has a line in one of his raps about it.
That's right. Can I just say what it is?
Absolutely.
As we listen to debating politicians preaching love and hate like Radio Raheem or Robert Mitchum. So that's the bridge of the
That's a do the right thing.
connection
Night
as
of the
well.
Hunter
This guy.
reference right there.
That's right.
This guy.
That's right.
So yeah, like I said, we're talking Night of the Hunter this week. David, why did you add this onto the docket for us?
Well, I'm very excited because this month starts our Halloween-centered horror film month in terms of themes, and Night of the Hunter is just, it is also to one of my favorite films, and it was easily the best discovery I had in college. I made the mistake, I've told this story before, but I made the mistake in college of telling my professor that I don't like horror films. And he was like, okay, so you're going to take my gothic horror class and you're going to watch these films and you're going to get straightened right out. Yeah. And one of them was Night of the Hunter, and I put it in. And, you know, there's three things that happen when you watch a classic film. One, you watch it and you say, I get why it's a classic film. I get why everyone talks about it, but, you know, it doesn't really speak anything to me. Then you see one, you're like, oh, I get it, and it's good. It really is good. And then there's ones where you're just like, holy crap, like, how did this exist? How was this made in 1955? And this film is just like, it's just crazy all over the place. Just, it's like, starts out as a crime thriller, turns into like this gothic horror film. You got the anti-religion in there, and then all of a sudden they're on a riverboat and it turns into this expressionistic, beautiful fairy tale. And just the blending of styles and the lighting and the cinematography and the shot compositions, it was just like nom 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 in college.
See, as far as the anti-religion piece, I thought it was very interesting because I thought what it displayed was a contrast between how religion can be used for good and how it can be used for evil. So, of course, you know, Harry Powell is using it for evil, thinking it's good. It almost shows the relativity of good and evil in someone's eyes when they're that religiously fervent. But also, Ms. Cooper, when she's reading, she's telling the kids biblical stories, it's like it shows how that can be used in a hopeful, hope-inspiring way. So I just thought that was an interesting kind of undercurrent to soften the sort of anti-religious tone, or at least show it the panoramic nature of religion.
Yeah, I felt like the film did a great job of not out and out saying religion is bad or religion is good. It's saying, here's one extreme, and here's a much lesser extreme. Where do you fall, viewer? Are you more on Powell's side of like, yes, let's be zealots, or are you more with Miss Cooper, just like, let's tell the good parts and the good morals of the story and all of that stuff?
And even that type of moral complexity in a film made in 1955 is so.
Oh, God.
I mean, there's so many layers to this film.
Yeah.
I mean, it took risks that some films just didn't take. I mean, even though, you know, I know there were those pre-code films that definitely like took many risks, but this was like, to do that at this time, there are certain lines, which I'll get into later, that are just like jaw-droppingly modern, where you're like, that sounds like it's out of a Stephen King novel. Right. That's just like,
well, I mean, just her mother talking about sex without talking about sex.
Exactly,
I was like,
whoa,
this conversation just took a turn, didn't it?
There's a line where Icy is talking about being married to Walt for 40 years, and she says, well, you've been married to someone for that long. There's a point where you're just lying there thinking about canning. And it's like, and I just like, she's talking about lying there during sex, thinking about her canning in a subtle way. Yeah. You know, it's like, that's just like, that was just one example to me of like, wow, they're just like
that really piqued my attention. I was like, this conversation, what are we talking about right now? You're talking about sex and how you don't like your husband.
Yeah. Wow, and I love Walt's reaction to it. He's eating like some chicken or something, and he just drops it and he like shakes his head. Like,
I can't believe you're talking about this in mixed company.
As well, which I love.
Humor and the dark humor and how it weaves in, because that whole section when So Harry Powell marries Shelley Winter's character, and that whole scene in the bedroom, and then when she's at the seance and the fire and everything, you're just like, what am I watching?
Oh, the moment when she is ready to come to bed and she reaches, she says his name and he reaches out his hand. There's a moment of tender vulnerability, loving, longing, like she's finally getting, you know how she was like apprehensive to like move on afterwards, and Icy's just pouring it on thick and she's like, all right, I'm gonna do it. She sees his hand reach out and there's this look, she's such a great actress, it's like there's this look of vulnerability, and when he just says, fix the window shade, it's like, it's so subtle, even it's almost like this micro moment of complete just like wounding before she just moves on from it and is like, it's okay, he's just, this is like a husbandly thing, this is for, you know what I mean? But it's like she allows there that one moment of like, it's just piercing the love that she thought was going to be there. And I don't know, it's just incredible.
Because she doesn't love him.
Right.
She doesn't. She knows that this is a marriage of convenience, and she knows that she needs to do this for herself and her family.
Right, exactly.
But she thinks maybe there'll be a little tinge of what she had with her husband, played by Peter Graves, which I was very excited
having grown up on Airplane, that was just like
when he
so
shows up,
cool.
I was like, Peter Graves!
Oh, I love the way that scene just kind of rolls out. Like, you're just like, oh, it's their dad. And then he's like, I just robbed a bank and killed some guys. And you're like, hide the money.
Where am I gonna hide?
It's like, what the,
good to see
what
you
is
too,
going on
I
here?
guess.
And then the police attack him, and like the kid's reaction to it, and how that is echoed at the end of the film. But I'm really glad that you said that Shelley Winters is such a great actress, because I feel like there's like this film in Place in the Sun, and like she's just so underappreciated.
Lolita, right? Yeah, I mean, I immediately thought of Lolita because of her character in that and what she has to endure, you know, as far as just like, I mean, certain layers of, you know, you could call it evil, but I don't like to even quantify it as that, but just that kind of behavior, you know what I mean? When people choose to be that way and you sort of, I don't know, I feel like she finds these justifications for the, you know, reactions to things, and she just really makes things realistic in a way that strengthens the screenplay.
Her character could very easily be one note, just like the poor widow marries the guy, drinks the Kool-Aid, joins the cult, then he kills her. But you see in those moments where she is converting to his ways of the internal struggle and the processing of the information of, is this true? Is this what I want to follow? Is this what I want to be doing? And ultimately in that like church scene with all the fire and everything, and she's praising and, you know, talking hellfire and all that stuff, you're just like, oh, she's gone.
Yeah.
She's,
you know,
she is not there anymore.
Laughton's use of, and obviously the cinematographer, the use of symbolic imagery in this film is perhaps the one, it's in one of the best I've ever seen in using that. The scene we were talking about in the bedroom, he stands up, he's completely in darkness. He turns on a light, which is an artificial light that illuminates him. Now, when is natural light used to illuminate someone? When the skiff pulls up, they show the clouds, and the sun breaks through, and the salvation arrives. Miss Cooper arrives, and it's the natural light that is illuminating the good. It's like, it's so, I mean, have you noticed, like, he, at that picnic, he's in black, everyone else is in white or lighter colored garments. It's like so overt almost, but without being showy about it. It's just incorporated into the fabric of the film.
Stanley Cortez is his name. He also shot the magnificent Emersons of Orson Welles. And he's quoted as saying that Laughton and Welles are the only two directors to understand light. I completely agree.
He shot two of the best Sam Fuller films, by the way, Naked Kiss and Shot Corridor. Naked Kiss being one of my favorite films of all time, as far as black and white cinematography.
I would have said like that, like a second great discovery in college, and also a film that was just like, where did this come from, is Naked Kiss. Like the first time I saw that, especially the first scene. I think this film is as stylistically innovative and just as cinematic as Citizen Kane. And it's so
I wouldn't disagree with you.
That, like, I think it's absolutely heartbreaking that Charles Laughton only made this film. And
He
basically
wanted to
said,
make Heart
no.
of Darkness, I believe it was. Or was it? No, maybe it wasn't Heart of Darkness. No, it was Naked and the Dead.
Yeah.
That was the
his
other
next
film. You know, and it's, yeah, it was a cool story how he came to direct it, too. What is it that he thought he was going to play Powell, and then it was like, no, actually, it's the producers. Like, we think it would be better if it wouldn't quite be as marketable if that were the case, and you should direct. Just like how it was sort of a reluctant like thing. Okay, I guess I'll do it. It's like he had no like, you know, plans of that.
No
It's just
background in
kinda-
directing and
Just
film either.
doing this and
You know, it's just
And
how do you
because
do
this
that?
film didn't do well in its initial release, it was pretty much a big flop. And I've read conflicting accounts of, because of the failure of this film, Laughton vowed to never direct a film again, and didn't. This is the only film. But then another account says that, well, that's only part of it. He preferred directing theater, and he didn't enjoy the process of directing film. Theater directing is more of a fluid process. You know, you rehearse it and you put it up, but then even within the production, you can make small adjustments and like, oh, that scene's not really working. Let's fix that or whatever. Whereas film, it's done. And unless you're George Lucas and you just go back and you constantly tweak stuff, it's done and you walk away from it. And he didn't like how this all turned out and was just like,
You know, it's interesting
Back to
how
theater.
he used his theatrical background to kind of navigate the visual spectrum, because it's like it was all sound stages pretty much, and using like a really stylized use of set pieces to kind of control the mood of the whole film. And it's like, I mean, you can see the influences from the silent era and German expressionism and all that is in there, in the mood, lighting, and all of that. But
it's Cortez for you, man.
yeah,
reading like the backstories about how Laughton was as a director, and you know, Mitchum talking about him and saying that he was essentially his favorite director. It
That's
almost
powerful.
yeah, right, from Mitchum, and
Jeez.
it almost reminds me of like early Francis Ford Coppola, like when he did The Godfather and he did Apocalypse Now, and you think about how like he was so into, like you said, that theatrical background, that he's like, no, we're going to break this script down. We're going to get everyone together. We're going to do a read through. We're going to break it down. We're going to discuss character arcs and all that stuff. You know, there's a awesome backstory, and even on this DVD, there is this like awesome documentary that is essentially, it's like all B-roll stuff and like behind the scenes footage. It's all edited together, and it's basically another movie.
Wow.
And it's so like interesting because you can hear Laughton talking to the actors while they're rolling, and it's so awesome.
Well, and his what he
awesome.
knows as an actor too. It's like that's
Yeah.
just he's an actor's director. It's like like Elia Kazan. It's like just like able to like cut through. There's not that disconnect. Of not knowing how to talk to the actor. Where like Hitchcock had his own way of viewing actors, is almost like chess pieces.
Right.
But-
Manipulating the players
exactly
as they go.
Or Kubrick.
As an
something like
actor, have you had the opportunity to work with actor directors?
I have. Yeah.
It's a great experience, isn't it? For the most part.
It can be twofold, because sometimes they might have an understanding of how best to do it, so they might show you, this is how I would do it, and you sort of, you have to balance it between what you know as an actor and what you trust in their knowledge, and, but you have to be open. That's the thing.
Yeah.
As an actor, it can't all just be about, you have to be confident, but you have to like be ready to receive information from the director. That's the reason they're called that. You know, it's like, But
The way he worked with Robert Mitchum, with Powell,
who's untrained, by the way.
Right.
It's just incredible.
But they like modulated how, that dark comic tone to him, and how in some instances he's almost like a cartoon, and he has like these moments where, like especially when he's trying to get the kids and the kids are running away.
Right.
And there's a moment where Lillian Gish was talking to Charles Laughton and says, aren't you afraid you're going to undercut like how evil he is and how scary he actually is? And he's like, no, I think it's actually going to aid that, because one, the audience is always going to ask, why can't he catch these kids? Like, why are these kids always getting the better part of him? And he essentially said, because Powell himself underneath everything is just a big kid.
Right.
And you hear something like that, and you're like, geez, like that's a really like I would have never thought of that.
It plays into his character pretty well, though, because if you think about a man who still speaks to God as if he were
and
an entity.
the introduction to him is him conversing
Just
with God.
speaking directly to God, that's something that you did as a child.
Right.
Like, that's what you were taught in Sunday school and stuff. Like, you can just talk to God whenever you want to. And he never grew out of that to the point where he thinks God is actually speaking back to him. And that's a question that I always have with these kinds of characters, just like, from the page. Do they actually think they hear God? Or is he just filling in the silences? Like you sometimes,
do you remember,
I talk to my cats, and I know that they're not talking back to me, but I make up a conversation because it's funny to pretend that my cats are talking to me. But I also understand that they're not talking to me. So is that kind of how these characters played out, do you think? Does he hear God or does he fill in the blanks?
I don't know what you're going to say, but I think his psychology and what the personality that he's creating inside himself that is speaking for God is himself talking back to him. So he's basically having a conversation with his darker kid.
Somehow I opened right to the page I wanted, which is just really
magical.
cool. But there's a point where they're sharing the cell together, and Ben asks him, "What religion do you profess?" And he says, "The religion the Almighty and me worked out betwixt us." That's so just like explanatory of his character. Like he doesn't care about, he finds justifications for killing because he says, "Hey, Lord, there's a lot of killing. You have no problem with killing."
Yeah, there's a lot of killing in the Bible.
It's the whole, it got me thinking of the sacred and the profane, of like that whole theory of like, it's all relative to that person's beliefs, because it's like he said he has no problem killing because it's in the Bible, but he does have a problem with sex and with women acting, with being flirtatious, and with, I mean, that scene when he's talking to Ruby outside the when he buys her the ice cream, and then the teenager comes up and she says, aren't these just the prettiest eyes you've ever seen, or are they? Because she's kind of meek, and you can just, because they did the setup of him popping out the switchblade, you don't even see it. You just hear the cloth rip, and you know that he did it. Like it's just amazing.
Speaking of the switchblade popping out, the scene that you're talking about is in a burlesque hall, and he's watching a dancer up there, and he's got his hands in his jacket pockets, and he pops his switchblade, and the blade comes out. It was originally scripted that it was going to be in his pants pocket, so it's even more phallic. Of like, that's the representation of his hatred of women.
Right. Yet it's still it's not.
But it's still an erection.
Right.
It's still out of his control almost.
Wow.
And I always read it, and there may even be visual implications of this throughout the film, but it's like I always read it as it's like his own impotency with women is what brings that.
I mean,
out
isn't
of
that
him.
it's kind of almost a cliche of a lot of serial killers that attack women?
If not impotency, some kind of sexual molestation that happened to him in his youth, that any kind of lustful feelings that he may have were punished, so therefore he has to punish all lust.
It really makes you wonder what his past was and what his upbringing was.
That wouldn't be a terrible prequel.
Not at all, I think.
I mean, find somebody who looks vaguely like Robert Mitchum, send it 20 years prior to this movie, I'd watch it.
Kind of off topic, I just wanted to make sure I got it in there, because it was, there's that scene when they are able to get away from Mitchum, and by the way, it's like the way that you sort of think Birdie is going to be their salvation, and he ends up being drunk when they go to him. But he did fix the skiff. The skiff was fixed. He kept his promise.
Is their salvation.
Right? Exactly.
He did his job.
Right, he was right, and then it's leaving, and then Mitchum is like trying to get them, and he screams this like primal scream that's almost like a kid not getting their way too. And then it's brilliantly woven into this understated orchestral like note where it literally like becomes the note and it drifts across the river. It's like this amazing moment. Like,
and not only that, like the editing of that scene, because like he screams and then like the shot, like it's a low angle shot of him, and then all of a sudden it goes out to the high angle shot. and then it cuts to the boat going away. And
then,
as the boat's going away, that's how the orchestral note kind of takes the boat away.
Well, and then Pearl starts singing that song about the fly with the two children, the wife and the two children, right? Which is just incredible, having that be it's like a Greek chorus almost. And then he switches to an aerial shot where it's seen through a spider web. So the fly caught in the spider web. It's like this brilliant symbolic imagery combining with the imagery in the song. Like it's multiple sided. It's like there's this moment in Tarkovsky. I think my name is Ivan, where it's like a shot in the back of an Apple truck, and it's these two kids, and then at the same time that the truck
Ivan's Childhood.
So it pulls. I think it had a couple different translations. So it pulls away. The camera pulls up at the same time that the truck pulls away. So you experience this like sensation. I'm just always amazed when directors think to make a moment multi-sided, so that it's not just one thing you're experiencing. They create, even if you don't know it.
It's almost four-dimensional. Like had there been a sound or a smell in the theater, you've been like, they just pump in a little bit of exhaust, and you're like, woof, I'm behind that truck.
Right. And they're thinking like, it's like, okay, so what is my character, like what is the feeling my character is feeling right at this moment, and how do I make the camera feel that, the editing feel that, and the music and everything else feel that. That whole sequence, man. I mean,
it's haunting.
Every shot, it's like imagery out of a dream.
The underwater shot to me has to have been inspired by La Télan. I don't know if you've seen Jean Vigo. So like, there's an underwater dream sequence where the character Jean jumps into the water thinking he can find this woman that he's in love with, and she's in white and she's down there, and he's like trying to get to her and he can't. And I mean, it's right out of that. It's lyrical. It's like, I mean, if he didn't, then it just is coincidence, but I just was like transfixed by
that shot.
That shot
haunting.
She's like in the car, like it's just
perfectly
like this,
just like right there.
It's unbelievable.
And that he's the one that like he leans over the boat and he sees her through the water, and then we get the shot and the seaweed with the hair,
right?
And it's just that like just that it's like 1955,
right?
Yeah. Also, the dedication of putting the entire car in there. I mean, granted it's staged and all that, but it's just so perfect.
Right.
It's so perfect. And you guys had mentioned how great Shelley Winter's in this. Mitchum didn't like her. Didn't think she was great. So much so that he thought, in shooting that shot, he's like, jokingly said that they should just put her underwater. And just, that's where she should be. Like, her best moment of acting in the film is when she gets her throat cut. And I'm just like,
I mean, I think that's
wow.
not noticing her quiet moments.
You sound like
and not really like watching her moment to moment, because she is processing everything. She is very present and very in her character. You know,
Mitchum seems like he was a mess on this film.
And I think
drunk, drugs, all that stuff. I read a story of there was one day when he showed up on set drunk, and one of the producers confronted him about it. So we walked over, opened the driver's side door of his Cadillac, and peed in his car.
Wow.
Robert Mitchum, everybody.
All right, Robert Mitchum.
Classy guy.
But what a performance.
Right?
Yeah, great.
Why is that always the case? It's the same thing with Clark Gable.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, you're so great. And then you read about him, you're like, you suck.
You know, it's the same thing
person.
in Cape Fear. He has this amazing ability to underscore charm with menace in a way that's almost, you can't see the strings. It's like, you know, and you notice when when he finds out from Ruby that the kids are there, he just immediately leaves and he starts like going into town. He's tipping his hat to like everyone he passes. He has these like, he makes sure to cover all the social niceties of like that he's got to do in order to
That's a sociopath
take
for
people.
you.
That's exactly what
It's
it
like,
made
I
me
know
think
the things
of.
that I need to do. I need to say hello to the children, but then you
Right.
look in your eyes and it's just darkness. And you're like,
Well, and how quick is Icy to believe
Oh.
that when he's telling them what happened, he has a line where he just says something about maybe she wasn't the one to take care of these kids, and she goes,
Yeah.
And Walt's a little bit like, I don't know about this guy.
Yeah.
Just like he's asking questions, he's trying to figure it out. She's just so, there's a lot of sexism in this, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
That, first of all, when Ben says, you know, don't tell your mom, she doesn't have any common sense, but
Yeah.
you do. So you're gonna say, how old is John? I don't know, like 8?
7, 8.
It's like to say that, and I really wonder, is it like, oh, is it because he's male?
Yes.
And then there's even female sexism, which it's just I always find very interesting. I read a lot of this Irish writer Sarah Grand, where she would, in the late 1800s, she would write novels where there would be one female protagonist that was like, no, I know what I'm doing, like I am intelligent, and there would be all these women around her that are like, nope, women are fools, women are this. How many times in this movie did women say women are fools? Miss Cooper says it, Icy says it, that you don't marry for love, that's something men do. Women, it's really interesting. It's like definitely throughout the film.
But then it has some progressive moments when the young girl is almost picked up by Powell, then goes to Miss Cooper and tells her what happens. And apparently she's been doing this for a while. She's been seeking out the attention of older men basically since she was pubescent, it seems. And Miss Cooper's reaction is just like, oh, you're just looking for love in the wrong place or something like that. And you're like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. That's not where I expected this very doting religious figure to be accepting of her behavior or even forgiving to the slightest degree. I thought that was really surprising.
I mean, can we talk about the very opening shot of the film? So she's just like almost Wizard of Oz-esque, like Miss Cooper's like talking to the kids literally just in front of Celestial.
Faces.
And they're disembodied.
Yeah.
They're disembodied heads, a semicircle of disembodied heads. Like that is just what, it's just,
starts up and
I
you're just
find
like,
it
ooh,
very
this is trippy.
interesting.
And then I can't remember which kid it is. It might be Pearl, is down in the lower right, and she's just got she's just the freakiest face. She stuck out to me so much. I was like, whoa, that child's possessed or something. But I mean, it's a disembodied child's face. How good is it going to be?
Right.
Speaking of the kids, though, the kids were really great in this movie.
Yeah.
Pearl has her moments of not being so great.
See, I thought that about John, only because when he goes, no, and then he goes, no. It was just like, it was literally the only tarnish on the film for me, where I was like, that wasn't great.
Well, I've also read that Laughton didn't really direct the kids because he didn't like kids. So Mitchum did a lot of the directing, and then of course there's conflicting accounts of that as well. But a lot of Pearl's reaction shots in the movie are taken from other moments in the film where
really good,
Laughton is like yelling at her because she's not doing what he wants her to do. So like she stops her lines and she kind of starts to cry or whatever. And that's, unrelated to what's happening in the scene, but it worked perfectly to react to Powell or react to what was going on. And I thought that was really interesting to be able to take all this B-roll and repurpose it when it's really, you just can't direct a child very well. And they're scared of you.
Right.
You're like, well, put that over here, put that here. There, I got a movie now. But I can't imagine directing kids. It's hard enough directing my peers, let alone children.
Yeah, it's got a...
That's right, you got a kid in Northland. I forgot about that.
That's fun. I want to talk about the screenplay, because you alluded it's like one of the top 5 for you.
Yeah.
James Agee.
Yeah.
I mean...
Died 2 months before the movie was released.
And again, like there's conflicting reports about whether or not like Charles Laughton got his script and just reworked it.
Mitchum claims to have rewrote it himself
Agee
too.
was a poet too, which I thought really shows. Yeah, I mean in the work. I want to read the novel so I can, because I think it was a combination of the novelist grew up in that town in West Virginia, so it's like obviously the dialogue, the rurality of like the colloquialisms and things like that are obviously from his own upbringing. Yeah. But I feel like Agee might have been able to take it and poeticize things and really make it,
Have you read A Death in the Family?
I own it, and it's been sitting on my bookshelf for the longest time. And
like everything you're saying, like the colloquialisms and like the poetic nature of the South and weaving that in. Like you read that novel and you're like, of course James Agee wrote this movie and had something to do with it, and it can't be that Charles Laughton didn't like his first draft and reworked it and rewrote it.
Yeah.
Because there's again conflicting reports about, that he did that, but then someone dug up the first draft and said, no, it's pretty close. Like Charles Laughton.
Yeah, it was found like, what, 13 years ago or something?
Yeah. But he is just like, with this and the African Queen, it's just, he knows how to write a
Episode 1 of
screenplay.
this very program.
But just a miracle of a screenplay. And like, I talk about this all the time, and like, it's a story that's structured in that every act is like its own style and its own piece. So that, you start with this crime thriller and then you get into this gothic horror film. And then all of a sudden we're on the river and it's like this.
It's a masterful shift of tone where you really don't see them do it.
Nearly imperceptible, yeah.
Yes.
Because we were just recording a podcast today, and one of the issues that Tim and I both had with the film was that it had an inconsistent tone. The first act felt one way, second and the third. This one, they did feel different, but just like the scream moving into the orchestral, the transitions are so smooth and so clean that all of a sudden you're in a different film and you didn't even notice until you're a couple scenes in. You're like, oh, this changed a little. Oh, okay, this is neat.
There's one line I just have to read, only because when Birdie is talking about having seen Willa's body at the bottom of the river, he says, down there in the deep place with her hair waving soft and lazy like meadow grass under floodwater, and that slit in her throat like she had an extra mouth. Like, that writing is superb.
Yeah.
It is just incredible. It is so specific and poetic, and then to contrast the poetic nature of his description with the sheer brutality of that next line, like a Raymond Chandler line, who was also a lover of poetry too. So it's like, it's just this interesting, like, it was like this, and then the slit in the throat looked like a mouth. Like, it was just like, whoa.
And that's
like,
so
just
unpoetic.
incredible.
That's just like...
Exactly. It's
just a simile.
Right.
There's nothing poetic about it. It's just like, it just looks scary to me. Like, yeah.
There's another line real quick where Mitchum says, speak or I'll cut your throat and leave you to drip like a hog hung up in butchering time. Which is almost a subtle reference to the hanging of their father. I thought there was nothing left to chance in this screenplay, or any choice made direction-wise. It was literally just detail-driven to the point of Mitchum is running up the stairs to there's that moment when they're in the cellar, and John makes the choice to, I'm going to snuff out the candle, knock the block so that the shelf falls, the jars fall on him. They run up the stairs. Mitchum slips on the jar. He comes up. And then he has both hands out when he's running after them. It reminded me of Frankenstein and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The directness of that one shot where Leatherface is running after them, I thought it was so iconic. And then I went back and I paused it to see which hand got closed in the door. It was the left hand of hate. Got closed in the door, and I guarantee it was not up to chance.
Of course not.
Love will win. Like, it's just like amazing. Like,
it's a perfect example. It's a perfect example of just a director as a singular visionary, and that's why it just breaks my heart. And at the same time, like, I know why an audience in 1955 had no idea what to make of this film.
Right. It was
critics,
especially if they
That's why
were
Citizen
feeling it
Kane
as a horror,
was sort of misunderstood at its time. I mean,
but still, like, you look at it today and you're like, oh my God, this is so modern, this is so great, and this is so dense with so much imagery and so much going on, and that we don't have, like, it's like the first season. It's like the only season of Freaks and Geeks. It's like, this is all we have. Charles Laughton directing.
It's the way Rutger Hauer feels about Blade Runner. I just read an interview with him, and he's not really all about the new film, even though and I'm going to see it on Friday, but it literally looks visually stunning. is that he liked the idea that it was a standalone sci-fi noir. It's like,
And
you know, it's like, does it
I'm
need
in that
anything
camp
else?
because I don't love Blade Runner. I'm in the minority.
It's one of my top 4 films.
I've seen it, and I don't think I've seen the right version, you know, because there's 17 different cuts of it, and you're like, oh, well, you need to see the ultimate exclusive director's underpants in his sock drawer version.
Or and like Harrison Ford hated one version and Ridley Scott hated one version.
Exactly. So it's like, I don't know
which.
which one I'm supposed to see. Right. But the one I saw was convoluted, confusing, and boring. There are great parts in it.
Didn't you not like Prometheus either, though?
No.
I feel like some people don't like Ridley Scott's cerebral, I leave tons of unanswered filmmaking, though. You know what I mean? It's definitely like a choice.
So I'm there where I'm like, all right, this is a movie. The sequel looks excellent. But do I need any more of that story that I didn't like the first time around? That's just me. But I'm going to see it, too. Because it's getting great reviews, and it looks really cool.
Lillian Gish.
Yeah.
The whole third act with her and, you know, that all of a sudden we're in this crazy expressionistic fairy tale. There's 2 images in this film that, like, I love them. I would, if I, you know, I would just take them and I would just hang them up and I would just stare at them all day. Him on the horse. When the kid's in the barn and sees it and the horse is going across the
You
road.
mean the little person on a tiny horse?
Yes.
It looks like out of a John Ford film, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Like the lines, just the,
But then, you know, Lillian Gish in the rocking chair with the shotgun singing.
And it looks like it's pointing at him, like because of the angle, right? And then she comes up with the light and then he's gone.
He's gone.
I was like, is that... It almost endows him with like a supernatural, like he is the devil. You know, it was really interesting.
And I have, like, there's like a little piece of when you're watching it and she comes in with the lamp, you can sort of make out that he like rolls down and rolls away.
Gotcha.
And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And then the light goes out and it's
No, she has the toughness, the world-weary toughness of a Thelma Ritter in Pick Up on South Street. You know what I mean? Just that sort of like, just like she's seen it all, and you know what? Like when she pokes him with the shotgun, and if that's like that's cartoonish to me. Yep. His reaction to that, and he goes, oh, and he like screams.
And he runs out of the house and like
runs across the lawn, like it's.
And he's like making like a Wile E. Coyote noise.
What are you doing, dude?
Oh man.
That's why, like, there's in terms of like influences and how you know that there's so many filmmakers that look at this film and you know it. So one of the most interesting ones for me is, so you can't think of David Lynch and think that he didn't watch this film and soak up some of its energy and some of its, even like when you were talking about the opening shot and like the
like in
heads.
Mulholland Drive, the way it starts with the little people. Yeah,
or even like Eraserhead when you get the vision of the whatever, the girl with the cheeks and everything. But I think Harry Powell and Dennis Hopper as Frank Booth and Blue Velvet are like 2 cinematic cousins, and that those 2 films would be a perfect double bill.
Wow, yeah.
That is awesome. That's great. Yeah, I really like that.
And
so when you open your movie theater someday,
right? Guess what we're doing? Guess what we're opening?
There's a little Cirque in Lynch too. His appreciation for color.
Yep.
I feel like,
and
you know,
and
especially
the
that film.
Emotions. Coen brothers.
Yeah.
So no, but the Coen brothers, they have they steal a line from this film in Raising Arizona.
Really?
Because she says, like, the hawk goes down and grabs the rabbit, and she says it's a hard world for little things.
Oh my gosh.
And Nicolas Cage says that at one point in Raising Arizona.
Wow.
And like you can definitely see it like in the way that we're saying, like, you know, her hitting him with the shotgun and him running off, like completely cartoonish. And they always include some kind of cartoon.
Well,
reference
Raising
in
Arizona kind of has a cartoonish quality to it.
Oh, Brother Where Art Thou, certainly.
Oh, absolutely.
Even like something like Barton Fink or
Hudsucker Proxy.
Hudsucker Proxy, No Country for Old Men, and just in terms of like how ridiculous Javier Bardem looks with his hair, and that he's such a crazy
It almost
character.
makes it more chilling because it looks so ridiculous, right?
Because you want to laugh at him, but he's terrifying.
He's terrifying.
Oh man, it's sort of like the way Woody Harrelson played Mickey Knox. I mean, he was like kind of like, it's like, and it's just like I kind of like this guy. Oh my God, he's a psychopath. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's part of being a psycho or a sociopath, is that you're usually incredibly charming.
Right.
And that's how you win people over, because you've learned the outward things to do to make people appreciate you.
Yep. And I think like when we talk about, because this film feels so modern, like feels like it could be released tomorrow and it would just fit right in. But there's like certain moments of surrealism in films. And Natural Born Killers is actually a perfect example, because that whole sequence with Rodney Dangerfield,
With the laugh track.
with the laugh track and everything, there are sequences in this film that hit that level of surrealism, and just like knock you back with how they.
The scene where John they're sleeping and John wakes up and they see that Harry is on the hillside approaching on his horse, and he goes, does he ever sleep? And it's like, there's no rest for the wicked. There's like a built-in joke to it. And it's like, how does this film able to achieve any tone it wants at any time, and it's effortless? It's like a tutorial on how to direct a film and not show your hand in any of it. You know, I mean, it's amazing.
And that level of like that, this he just will not stop. It's like that's what's true in The Terminator.
Oh yeah, totally. I didn't think about that. Wow.
And
God, I guarantee Cameron watched that film.
You just blew my mind.
I really think that might be one of the bases for that. That's really is like the essence of that character.
You're welcome.
You will not.
But even like Scorsese's remake of Cape Fear, I think owes more to this film than it does to Cape Fear.
The Cape Fear, absolutely. Yeah, and it's funny because it's one of the reasons I didn't like Scorsese's film for the longest time, because it was such a jarring shift in tone from the original, and I loved what Mitchum did with that role so subtly, but having watched it again and appreciated Scorsese for just the master he is, that is a very good film. Yeah, I mean, and you're right. There is. You know, I'd like to watch it again now, thinking about Night of the Hunter, because I guarantee it,
Because there's so much religious undertones in the film, and just how crazy De Niro is, and how far he takes, like that level of being an avenging angel, and even with like him being written up with all the tattoos and everything, and you can't think about the love and the hate,
right.
And even like. That film takes liberties with its tone, because it just like, as it keeps going and going, it gets more ridiculous and ridiculous, to the point where it just ends with this big crazy action sequence on the river with the boat, and he comes out and he's all burned and he looks like, I mean, he's not human at that point. I just think that he was more interested in making it more like this film than the original.
You know, the religious symbolism in this film really struck me, and I had to do just a little bit of research, and I looked up, so the fact that he's on this white horse, I just thought it was interesting, and I did some research on the four horsemen of the apocalypse and the various interpretations of what the white horseman represented, and there's some that believe that he was a Christ-like figure who was spreading the word of God, which is how he saw himself. Then there's this other interpretation that thinks he was the Antichrist, and even the words false prophet were used in what I read, which is what she warns them of in the opening moment of the film. And then another interpretation is that he's a pestilent, that it's a pestilence and a spreader of plague, and that he was given power over a quarter of the earth to kill by sword, famine, plague, or the wild beasts of the earth. And there's a line where Robert Mitchum says, he answers Ben's question that or it might be, I forget exactly where he says it, but he talks about how he's used his sword. He doesn't come in peace. He's using his sword. And I just thought, I really just thought that they thought about religious imagery so much
Yeah.
in the making of the film, and using all sides of it. How does he see himself? How does the viewer see him?
It is a very jarring image to see him on that horse, especially because he starts the film in a car. So you're like, all right, where automobiles are prevalent here. And then when he goes to get the kids, here he is on a white stallion, looking, magnificent. And you're like, but you're the bad guy.
Right.
Why do you look so awesome?
It's
I'm confused.
It's almost like in thinking about that, it's almost like the film is like, these characters are like traveling back in time. I once read the Roger Ebert's reading of Apocalypse Now is that
I love Roger.
right at the as they're going up the river, that they just keep going back in time. So each stop is like, now we're in the 60s. Now we're going back to the 50s.
Wow.
And then at the end, they're just back in
Primitive times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like the same
Like
with
Kurtz
this film.
is like found, almost like the way Lost kind of does. So it's like he found a way to reconnect to like the primeval source of life. It's like, and unless you want to approach that danger, you don't go there.
Turn back now.
Yeah.
And with this film, it's like, you feel that way only until the end when they get to the town and the townspeople are there, and then they start, even the way that is set up, it's like, then it turns into almost like Frankenstein because they all have the torches and everything, and they're like, hang him.
Right.
That's interesting just now that I'm thinking about the way that is laid out, and the fact that, starts in the car and then he's on the horse, and then it's just nothing but him.
And then we were talking about the river sequence with like the spider webs and all that. Throughout that, there's visual cues of how alone and isolated the children are. There are all these small animals, bullfrogs, rabbits, birds, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're
the
just
frog
like,
being silent witness.
and they're like, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do for you.
He talks
You're
about
just-
cooking the turtle, but he doesn't know how to make. He's like, we could make turtle soup. But interesting.
And then when they do arrive at Miss Cooper's house and they have the light of salvation, and you think it's going to be fine, then they can revert back to being children again because there's someone to take care of them. They're not taking care of themselves.
So many layers.
I love the use of detail and of having things that we know as the audience that Harry doesn't know. Like, we know it's in the doll. We see the doll the whole time in plain sight. It's brilliant. It's just right there. He like laughs when he finds out, like, of course it's in the doll.
Yeah.
But then when Pearl is spreading the money around outside, and you have this moment of panic, like,
Put it away.
What are you doing?
Put it away.
And they get it all away, right? And then part of a bill flutters past his feet, and he doesn't see it.
Yeah.
And then she's cutting figures out of the money. And think about it. She goes, this is mommy. This is, where was the money originally thought to be? At the bottom of the river. Who ends up at the bottom of the river? Mommy. It's like, are you kidding me?
And she
like,
doesn't know that.
It's just insane to me, the multiple levels of, it's, you probably could spend days on it and still not have all of it.
Oh yeah, this could be an entire semester.
I wish I could have been a fly
class.
on the wall, just watching it all be made.
You gotta see that document. I mean, it's like you're there.
Well, and I want to listen to that panel. You can listen with,
No, and thinking about like that level of detail, and that they were able to achieve this and that level of thought and complexity in the Hollywood studio system at the time, which is basically like, we're hiring you to make a movie, just come in, direct the movie.
Don't think too much.
Right.
It'll be a B
got
movie.
this.
Because he was a
amount of time.
veteran, it's like actor and theater director. It's like, you can come in and do a serviceable job and it'll be great, But to do this, it's really.
This movie was $200,000 over budget, which is crazy, because there's not that much to it. When you're looking at it, it's not like there's grand set pieces or all this spectacle or anything. It's just, I feel like they were so specific and so nuanced in what they were doing that it was just taking too long. And I'm sure Robert Mitchum showing up drunk and on whatever drugs he was doing at the time didn't help either. Also, it's based on a Dutch-born serial killer named Harry Powers.
Really?
He was a real guy.
Huh.
Which, having listened to My Favorite Murder, the podcast, I'm surprised that I don't know more about that guy. I feel like that would have been bread and butter for them.
Mm-hmm.
So research for me later.
You know, I thought it was interesting. So Walter Schumann, the composer, the music is definitely a predominant factor in this film. In the opening credits, it's so menacing that you're like, this is, I immediately know this is a dark story. And I thought it was very cool how there would be one scene with ended in a dark tone and then immediately jump cuts to like hopeful, uplifting music. It's like this constant control of contrast between good and evil that he was sort of part of influencing. And I was looking him up, and he only composed scores for 6 films. 4 of them were Abbott and Costello films. The other one was Dragnet.
What?
Like,
what kind of career is that?
When he, like, I mean, talk about getting the best out of all your people.
Yeah.
You know, and the art director did Creature from the Black Lagoon, which I thought was
That
interesting.
explains why that underwater shot looks
Exactly,
so great.
and all those parts on the river are so haunting. It's like basically, I think he just was like, you know what? If we're gonna make this, I've never directed a film. If we're gonna make this what we want it to be, let's just get all these people that we know are good.
Hey,
because I mean, Dragnet had a great score. Like that's the thing. Is like just because you're not doing these types of scores doesn't mean you can't. It's like William Burroughs talked about. He's like, hey, you know, I studied Hemingway. I don't write like Hemingway, but I know how to compose. I spent my time writing like a very, you know, bare-boned short story. I know how to do that. I choose to break the rules. You know, that's the thing. Is like. These people who are masters of their work and own their own style, they still know all there is to know about all the various styles, you know?
I feel like that's true of anybody who's like at the top of their game, where they know the rules, they know how to follow the rules, but they've also ingrained those rules into themselves so much that they can break them, and they can break them so well that you're just like, you're not supposed to be able to do that. You can't introduce a God shot when you've never had that shot before, and then you throw it into Godfather, and all of a sudden it's one of the greatest, most iconic shots in the entire film.
There's such a fine
line
get
to that level
between being that willing to take risks, and then you've got like first-time filmmakers that are doing these like Dutch angles for no reason, or like an aerial shot for no reason that's completely jarring and is like, why are we looking at a close-up of the tire from above? And now we're inside the car again. What did that do? There should be a reason for everything you do.
Well, we're all the tire, man. And that's when the cinematographer just walks off. He's just like, no, I'm done. We're not the tire, idiot. All right, final thoughts, gentlemen, on Night of the Hunter.
Oh, man. Go ahead, Devin.
I mean, it's... it just represents all that I love about film. I mean, it encompasses the power of storytelling with strong characters, strong supplementary characters. They supported the whole story, and then just the power of visuals and the control you have over making it a poetic experience. That's the thing. It's like Tarkovsky, like that sort of level of like visual poetry, but not having it be gratuitous. You know, there's a reason for everything. It's just the best. I mean, one of the best films ever made.
You're absolutely right that it's a textbook for how to make a movie, and just like Citizen Kane is, even if you're someone who saw Citizen Kane and didn't appreciate it at the time or didn't like it at the time, the second that you watch it, understanding what the camera's doing, understanding what the sound is doing, understanding what everything else is doing, you watch it and it is a glossary, an encyclopedia. And this is the film, just like that my film professor in college did to me. It's like the film that I love to have in my back pocket, to be like, you don't like horror movies? Oh, you gotta watch Night of the Hunter. You love horror movies? Did you ever see Night of the Hunter? You should watch Night of the Hunter. And everyone that I know that has seen it that way is just like, wow, this is crazy. Like, it's awesome. It's just the lighting, the compositions, Robert Mitchum, Lillian Gish, the way the whole story flows so effortlessly between tones and styles is just, it's everything to me.
I liked it too. I don't think there are any words left. You guys said it all. My final thought is, my grandfather looked a lot like Robert Mitchum, so that was fun. And we lost my grandpa at Christmas, so I was like, oh, how about that? Yeah. So it was great. Thank you, David, for picking this. Thank you, Devon, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
As soon as he put it on the thing,
oh,
he was
I was like a kid at Christmas.
We got to get Devon.
Well, when he told me that you wanted to do Night of the Hunter, then I was a kid at Christmas, so I was like, yes, of course.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, I don't have to do any lifting in this one.
Oh, man.
Just sit back and listen to you guys nerd out. What is next week?
Next week is Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski, one of my favorite directors, and this is one of my favorite films. It's like the best example of what a director does, is this film. So can't wait to dig into that as we get that much closer to Halloween. And
we're going to be doing a Halloween special, guys. And this guy's going to be on it.
Yeah.
With my wife, who's sadly not in last week's episode, but she was. But we're gonna figure that out, and it's gonna be a little special one-off thing here on Channel 15. We're gonna talk horror movies, directors, favorites, genres, the whole kit and caboodle, and it's gonna be in color. How about that?
And today is October 3rd, which means tomorrow is October 4th, which means tomorrow is Lincoln's birthday. So happy birthday, Lincoln!
Thanks. Devon is hosting a radio show now. Why don't you tell the folks where they can find your show?
At 6 o'clock tonight, if you listen to 105.
This airs on Tuesday or on Wednesdays.
So, yes. So what you can do is every Tuesday from 6 to 8, you can, if you're in your car or near a radio, you can listen to 105.9 FM, The Radiator. And listen to my show, The Panoramic View, where I play all kinds of music from different genres, different eras. I try to create like a cinematic experience from song to song. And if you're not listening to it at the moment on the radio, you can go to bigheavyworld.com and stream it live.
Boom.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you again, Devon.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. And thank you, all of our listeners and watchers. We will be back next week with Rosemary's Baby. Until then, I'm Lincoln O'Hays.
I'm David Metzger.
And our guest is
Devon Ewalt.
We'll see you next time.